Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a hands-on preview of the Sony 400mm F2.8 G Master OSS lens. Now, we know that this lens was announced a long time ago, but nobody's seen it and nobody's seen sample images, but now we have a hands-on preview of it for you right here, because I was invited up along with Steven and a bunch of other photographers to a New York Red Bulls soccer game, MLS Soccer, to test out this lens. Now, we do have a real-world review coming in the next couple of weeks, which will go into more depth of us using it out at the soccer game. You'll see more examples, but don't forget you can download sample raw files, because I'm going to put a couple of them up for you guys to see right now so that you can pixel peep and see what this lens is creating. And now I want to go over the top level specs. So the first things first is, first off, Sony now officially has some big ass glass where they haven't had that before, and I can no longer say that Sony doesn't have big ass glass for sports photographers, because they have a 400mm 2.8. They say that it pairs perfectly with their 1.4x converter along with their 2x converter, which would make it with the 1.4 560mm f4, and on the other side, if you put the 2x converter on it, that's going to make it an 800mm f5.6. Now, I tested both of those out. You just saw a couple of sample images, and I'll give you some feelings and kind of reviewy-ish parts at the end of this preview. Now, the key specs are the weight. It weighs in at only 102.2 ounces. That's 6 pounds. Now, why is that important? Because the Nikon 300 2.8 AFS VR2 weighs in at 6.8 pounds, I believe, and that's a 300 2.8. So the Nikon 400 2.8 weighs in at 8.38 pounds, and the Canon is 8.47 pounds, and the price of this Sony, $12,000. That's right, it's an expensive lens. It's 12 grand. Now, the Nikon is, I believe, 11,200, and then the Canon is only $9,999. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, because it's so expensive, it would be a good thing to add to your My Gear Vault. Now, if you haven't added all of your gear to your My Gear Vault yet, could you please download the app? It's free for iOS and Android at mygearvault.com. Now, back to the kitty. Now, what color is it? Well, it's white. It's not Canon white, it's Sony white, and it's also not Betty white. Now, at the end of the lens, you will find an orange band around the hood, which is very nice. That's kind of similar to what you would see on an L series lens, except Canon doesn't actually put it on the outside of their lens hood. Now, you do have the ability to drop in a filter, just like all of the other manufacturers do. That means if you want to put an ND filter in there or a circular polarizer, you can drop that in closer to the body and it would work really well. Another important feature, or a spec, and it's not a feature, it's a spec, is the fact that on an A9 it only weighs 8 pounds. If you take the Nikon with a 400 2.8, a D5, or a 1DX Mark II, you're looking at 12 pounds. So now you have a savings of 4 pounds. My math correct? 12 minus 8, carry the 3. Kitty, how many is that? 4 pounds difference, right? Yeah, 4 pounds difference. So it is much lighter, which means you can handhold it to shoot, because it does have OSS built in, as well as the image stability, the IBIS inside of the camera, which makes handholding much easier if you work out like me. I will tell you, it's not easy to handhold it for long periods of time, but you can do it if you need to do it to get images. It's also now more balanced. Now, you can see from this image is that the elements are more closer to the center of gravity, making it a more balanced lens, whereas with older lenses, the Nikons and the Canons, you've got elements at the end making it top heavy, so when you put it over your shoulder, it feels like it's going to fall off your back. So that's much better. They were able to make it lighter by using the fluorite lenses, not just for cleaning your teeth. That helps make it much lighter as well. They did add this really cool switch that allows you to jump from the regular mode, full frame, into 1.5x crop mode, which is only a 10 megapixel image, but it allows you to quickly, with a flick of a button, like not even a button, just like spring loaded, you hit it instantly you go to 1.5x, and now you're in essence cropping your image, but you're getting more bang for your buck. So imagine if you have the 2x converter on and you go ahead and do that as well, you're getting even more cropping ability right there. Now, one of the important things that Sony was pushing is that, I want to get this right, it has high-speed XD linear motors in the lens to make it faster focusing. So instead of the older lenses having screw motors that have to rotate like this and rotate like this as you're zooming in and out, these linear ones go back and forth. So it's kind of like you whip your hair back and forth. Kitty, I whip my hair back and forth. Do you whip your hair back and forth? You whip your tail back and forth. But yeah, those linear motors allow for it to be smoother and quicker and much faster. And I will say, in my shooting with this lens, the focus paired with the A9 was really fantastic, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. Now, in the real world situations, how did it handle? It handled very well. I used it on a monopod. I had it on the A9. I was shooting uncompressed RAW, which means I was getting 12 frames per second in uncompressed RAW, and it was able to get really tack-sharp images. One of the great features for this is the IAF. Even with a subject all the way at a distance, far down the field, I could hit the IAF button and boom, I was focused right on the eye. That is what's fantastic about these Sonys for shooting sports, is you can activate that face detect or IAF. Now, it may jump to another subject, but I didn't really have that issue, and IAF made for great images. Now, I put the 1.4x converter on. I got the 560mm images. They look good. I will say that when you put the 2x on and the 1.4, your focus speed doesn't change that much. I didn't notice much of a difference in focus speed, but I noticed it was much more difficult to try and get the images sharp because I was moving a lot more. So it may have been, human error for me moving and not so much an issue with the 2x converter or the lens. It's just the nature of the beast. You're losing more light. The focuses may slow down slightly, but I'll have more of this in the real world review, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks, because we spent a good amount of time creating an awesome piece of content that is going to go into more detail and fully review this lens. But I wanted to share with you the hands-on preview part because we got to use it. Also, Sony just announced the firmware upgrade to the A9, which allows it to pair perfectly with the 402.8. So it's going to help with faster acquisition of focus. It's going to help you keep focus much better. It also now adds a serial number to the EXIF data, which they said a lot of sports and nature photographers were requesting, which I thought is always in there. I thought Nikon or Canon does that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Do those cameras do that? But if not, Sony has added that when you take a picture, it saves the EXIF, the serial number of the camera in the EXIF data. Now, this is an expensive lens. It's $12,000. Not much more expensive than what Nikon and Canon have to offer, but it's lighter, it's probably faster focusing, it's balanced really well. If I had a Sony A9 and a need to shoot sports, then I would have a 400-2.8 if I got a discount, because $12,000 is a lot for a lens that's probably going to sit around in my house. But for actual sports photographers and press photographers and news photographers that make a living at this, they want that 400-2.8 to get that sweet out-of-focus background bokeh that looks really good, the fast focusing, and the low light capability. Then they're looking at this 400-2.8. Would you use it if you could afford it? Would you have it? Let me know. Leave a comment down below, and that's where I'll leave this one. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.